Welcome to Blackbird Writers Presents. Today, I'm Tracy Phillips, and I'll be talking with Sheila Lowe, who is a forensic handwriting analyst. And Sheila has written several books, and her first book, Poison Pen, got a starred review from Publishers Weekly. Welcome, Sheila.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, and it's great to talk to you. As I was saying before, I loved Dead Letters, and unfortunately, it's the first book that I read. But I love the character and your way of describing everything. So I'm hooked. I'll be gobbling all of them up.
Thank you. I always tell people when they say, which book should I start with? I say, well, start with the last one, and if you like it, go back to the beginning. So you did just right.
Oh, great. Tell readers a little bit about this series.
Okay, there are 8 books in the series, and they look like this, and then there's 2 more over here. So this is the Forensic Handwriting Mystery Series featuring Claudia Rose, and she does the same kind of work that I do, which is it's split into 2 main areas, and that is behavioral profiling through handwriting, talking about how people are motivated and how they act. And then the other thing is handwriting authentication, like identifying who wrote this. So that's what I do. That's what Claudia does, only she gets herself into a lot more trouble than I have so far. And through the series, you meet, well, her boyfriend at first, and unfortunately I gave him a difficult name to pronounce. But it's Jovanich, his last name, and the young woman, well, she's a girl in Dead Letters, is Annabelle Giordano, who goes through the series. But in Dead Letters, I introduce more Monica, her Claudia's niece. So Monica is in the book earlier, I mean in the series early, but we don't really see her at all. And she really comes to the forefront here with her point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really loved her point of view. And it must be so interesting studying people's handwriting. Like you can tell their secrets and everything.
Oh, well, you can't tell their specific secrets, but there's certainly a lot about their past that you can tell, which is often a predictor of the future.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but yeah, you can tell a lot about people.
That's great. And by forensic analysis, you're actually called to court cases and you've been part of trials, criminal trials, I imagine. And
Yeah, I've testified about 70 times.
wow.
So, yeah, but most of the time, 99% of the time, that's about the handwriting authentication. So in case of forgery, for instance, then, or, like a ransom note or something like that would be on the other side. But it might come to court because, identify, like in the John Benet Ramsey case, for instance, there was that 3-page ransom note, and everybody wants to know, did her mother write it or who?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's
Very
kind of
interesting. So tell us a little more about Claudia Rose, the main character of your series. She's
okay.
like you, right? She's a handwriting expert.
Yeah, but she's a lot younger than me now. I was a lot younger when I started writing her, so which was back in the late 90s. But she hasn't grown up with me. She's as the series starts, she's like 39, and so she's a woman dealing with getting older, but she has relationship issues. She's commitment phobic because of stuff in her past, and so when she meets Joel, that opens up a whole new, I want to say can of worms, but that's so cliche. But
Yeah.
But their relationship progresses through the books as she, she grows and learns how to be more trusting. So, but she's got the same challenges as any modern single woman.
Yeah. So the newest release begins with Monica, you mentioned earlier, and that's Claudia's niece. And she's on her way to Egypt to join a team of archaeologists. And her story is key to Claudia's journey in this book. So tell us a little bit about Monica's story.
Well, Monica is only 18, and she's been quite sheltered because her mother died tragically when she was 12. And so her father, who is Claudia's brother, has, he's tried to really protect her. But she's now 18, and she says she feels like Rapunzel being stuck up in that tower, and she
Yeah.
needs to get out. And she's 18, so her dad can't stop her. But she and her dad are really close, so she talks him into helping her to get to Egypt. And so the book opens on the opening party of dig season. So,
Yeah.
but what happens from there? Claudia ends up having to go all over the world looking for her because a few weeks after her arrival, Monica disappears. She's taken off with a young archaeologist who has a shady past
Hmm.
that's kind of coming back to haunt him, and they're gone.
Yeah.
So the trail leads. She starts in Egypt, and then she ends up going to Gibraltar, and then ends up in England. So,
Yeah. And I loved your descriptions of Egypt and all of these exotic places. I felt like I needed to wipe the sand off my shoes when I was done reading, you know?
that's so great. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so what kinds of research did you have to do for this book?
Well, here's what happened. 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, my son, who lives in Germany, and his wife were having a baby, which is my first and only grandchild.
Mhm.
And so, of course, I had to go over there to, right after the birth of the baby. You know that. You've been through the same thing.
Yeah.
So I'm from England, and whenever I go to Europe, I have to go to England. And while there, before going there, I met some new cousins through genealogy research,
Mhm.
and they were close, like, first cousins.
Wow.
And so I met up with them, and, and then I met up with some other cousins that I'd met before through genealogy, and we all went to Gibraltar because
Oh,
that's where our great great grandmother was from. And so I had to find a way to write off the trip.
yeah.
But I have not been to Egypt, but I've always loved Egypt. I know I was there in a past life. And in fact, psychics have told me that I was a scribe there, which makes perfect sense,
Oh,
with,
there you go.
with writing. So yeah, so I built a story. I just decided that I would work my Egypt theme in with some of those other places.
Yeah. Well, your descriptions are phenomenal.
Thank
Um, but the secondary story in this book is just as captivating. Claudia's brother gets charged with murder. So set this story up for the readers.
Yeah, her Claudia's brother Pete has gone to his college reunion in Tucson, Arizona, which is a place that I've been many times, and there's a bookstore there that mostly books. That's just wonderful, and I've done signings there. So I put that in the book too. But anyway, Pete is there, and he's
And
having
Pete is Monica's dad.
Peter's mom. Yes, and Claudia's brother. So he's gone to the pre-reunion party, get together with a bunch of his old buddies at this bar called Dirtbags, and there he runs into an old enemy, and they, really get into it, and then the next day the enemy is found dead. So there were lots of witnesses hearing the threats and seeing the fight. So Pete was the logical suspect.
Yeah.
And
And
that's that's why he can't go after his daughter, because logically he would be the one to go to Egypt and look for her. But
right.
since he's in jail and his passport has been taken away when he gets out of jail, then Claudia has to go in his stead.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought that was a great way to set it up for her to have to go looking for her niece. Um, and and like I said before, your descriptions of Egypt and Gibraltar and Morocco, they all make me hunger for travel there. Um, and you did say you wrote this during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you manage to research while we're all in quarantine?
Yes. Oh, yes. You asked me about research, and I went somewhere else.
That's all right.
Well, I'd been to Gibraltar and took pictures and videos, and so I knew I'd been to the top of the rock, and it's a very small place, so you get to go everywhere. I didn't I just referred to Morocco in the book. So I didn't go there.
Mhm.
And of course, with Egypt, my son has performed there, and I talked to a number of people who have lived there, and I read lots of books. And so, books and YouTube and England, where things end up, is my home.
Right.
So no problem with that. I knew quite a bit about that.
Yeah. But during Claudia's trip there and also Monica while she's there, they take some little trips down into these pyramids.
Oh, in Egypt, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, again, I talk to people who've been there, and I just, I know I've been there before. It just,
Yeah.
and my cousins,
Probably
when I
stays
was,
with you.
yeah, when I was little, my cousins who were the same age lived over there. Their father worked for Shell Oil,
Hmm.
and they lived in Cairo. And maybe that's where my interest started. I don't know. Because
Yeah.
they came, I remember them bringing back a fez. I was very impressed with that fez, with that hat.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, yeah, research, if you can't be there, really the only thing you're missing is the smells, the feel of the air.
Hmm.
If you listen to other people's experiences, you can use those.
Yeah, and also in the book, it seemed like you're using a lot of really authentic dialects.
Hmm.
So to me, it was like listening to, music, like what you would hear when you're really there. Um,
Well, there's so many things. When I first started writing, um, my weakest point was description. And so I've worked really hard on that. And thank you. It sounds like the work has paid off. Um, I think I have a pretty good ear for language, even though I only speak English.
mhm,
But I am able to listen really well, and try to translate that onto the page.
mhm.
Not in a big, heavy way, but just little things that will point the reader to
Right,
what they should be hearing. And of
right.
course, with England, it's not at all difficult for me to go back to that. It just comes right back. So, so that's
um, so as a handwriting expert, what is your favorite word?
my favorite word.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I have no idea. I don't know. The only one that comes to mind is personality, because that's what I'm working with. Most of the
Uh-huh.
time. Yeah,
Eh,
I have an analysis to do today. It's a compatibility report between two people.
Oh,
So that's always interesting. So,
that sounds interesting.
yeah,
Um, and is there anything you'd like to tell us about some of your other books?
sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, when I had a deal with Penguin, and I wrote several books with them, and then I didn't. And so before I found a new publisher, I wrote a standalone book called What She Saw. And I've always been super interested in the amnesia and how it would feel to be in a world where you know nothing. You don't know your own name. And then there was another theme that I can't tell you about because it would spoil the book,
Okay.
that is in there. And so basically, this young woman wakes up on a train and she doesn't know who she is or where she's going. So it's long before the other book about the girl on the train. So this was in 2013. And she gets off the train at a station and meets somebody who appears to know her, and takes her to where she lives, where she discovers two sets of ID. The picture's the same, but the addresses and the names are different. And so, things happen.
Yeah.
So, a few years later, my last book actually was called Proof of Life. Um, well, in 2000, my daughter was killed by her boyfriend. And so that got me started on a path looking for what happens after we die, where I discovered that we really don't die at all, that, there is life after Earth. And so I did a lot of research about that. And then 4.5 years ago, my boyfriend died, and that reawakened the interest. And I thought I should write a book, about the spirit world. And I decided to write a fiction book. And then as I started writing it, I suddenly realized that the girl from the train needed to be the protagonist. And then there's another character who had to be from Written Off, which was the previous last Claudia Rose book. And so, in this book, she's hearing voices from the spirit world, and she's not happy about it. But they lead her to do things, and there's a missing child that she is asked to help find.
Wow.
That's the Beyond the Veil series, and that's the next book that I'll be writing will be the third one in that series.
Oh, sign me up.
You like that kind of thing?
I love that kind of thing. I've often
Cool.
thought that what I should be writing is more about the ether, the spirit world. And I've spent a lot of time learning and studying that type of thing too.
Oh, we have a lot to talk about.
We could. Yes.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
cool.
So maybe some of the readers want to know, where do you like to write?
Right here where I'm sitting now. This is where I spend 90% of my life because I have no life. I'm at my desk and I can't write anywhere else. The only thing I can write away from my desk is the outline.
Mhm.
Then I'll sit out on the porch and kind of try to be in nature. I live in a mobile home, so I don't have much of a porch.
Yeah.
But, yeah, or in the living room, I'll be writing the outline, writing the books right here.
And now, do you write those by hand or do you type?
The outlines I start by hand. And if I get to a point, what you could call it writer's block. I don't really think of it that way. But if I'm at a point where I'm having trouble with a scene, then I will go away and write by hand. First, I'll go for a walk and try to think about it. And then I'll come back and start handwriting, because the pen connected to the paper connects with your brain in a different way than the keyboard. I mean, research shows that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it helps.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, let's let readers know where to find you in the next few. Your book is coming out next week, The Dead Letters.
August 3rd.
Do you have a cover to show everyone?
I do. Right here.
Nice.
Even though it takes place in several countries, Egypt. I wanted it to be about Egypt. So.
Yeah, great. And so you'll have some launch parties and stuff like that. And are they listed on your website or?
They are in the events section. I am having a party on Tuesday here in Ventura. And then I have a couple of book signings in Orange County, California. And one of the signings is online. So anybody can join, and they're all on my site.
Oh, that's great.
That's the SheilaLoweBooks.com.
Great. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today. And I'm excited to read more of Claudia Rose books and your next series.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And we'll see you around the internet.
See you soon.
Okay.
Bye.